I was on the road for work, just another long-haul delivery through rural Pennsylvania. I'd done that route a dozen times, and I usually timed it so I could rest at a proper truck stop. But this night, I was running behind and dead tired. So I pulled off at a small gas station just off Route 220. It was around 2:30 a.m., the kind of late where everything feels slowed down and a little off. The place was half lit. One flickering overhead light buzzed above Pump 6. I parked at Pump 4, stepped out, and stretched. My back cracked like gravel underfoot. I went inside to grab coffee, and the only person there was a cashier young guy, maybe 20, eyes glued to his phone. I nodded at him. No response. When I came back out, I noticed her. A woman standing by Pump 6. She was tall, maybe early 30s, in a blue hoodie and jeans. She had her back to me, just standing there. No car, no bag, no movement. Just standing. At first, I thought maybe her car broke down and she was waiting for someone. But I didn't hear any phone conversation. She wasn't doing anything, just staring at the pump. I tried to ignore it, fueled up quickly, and got back in my truck. I took one last look before starting the engine, and I swear, she had turned her head slightly, just enough that I could see part of her face, but the rest was still hidden under her hood. She was smiling, not in a friendly way. It was this strange, crooked smile, like she was amused by something that only she understood. I turned the key in the ignition. Nothing. Tried. Again. Nothing. Battery was fine, fuel full. No aerolites. Just silence. I was trying not to panic, but it was hard not to glance back at her. She hadn't moved an inch. I locked the doors. The cabin suddenly felt too small. I called roadside assistance, and they said it would be at least 45 minutes. I figured I'd wait it out. Reclined the seat. Closed my eyes, and then 3 slow knocks on the driver's side window. I jolted upright. It was her. That smile now pressed right up to the glass. I scrambled, hitting the horn, yelling for her to back off. But she didn't flinch, just stood there, staring. I reached for my phone thinking I'd call 911, but it was dead. Full charge not 10 minutes ago. Now it wouldn't even turn on. I looked back up. She was gone. Just gone. I sat there, breathing hard, scanning the lot. Nothing. The whole place was empty again. I waited in that locked truck for what felt like hours, until the roadside guy finally arrived. I jumped out and tried to explain what happened. He looked at me like I was crazy. "Your starter's just loose," he said after checking under the hood. "Weird, but it happens." I asked if he saw anyone walking away. He said no. Didn't see anyone when he pulled in. I drove off as fast as I could. I kept checking my mirrors for miles. That was 2 months ago. I didn't tell anyone at work. Didn't want to sound like I was losing it. But a week later, I passed the same gas station again during daylight. I pulled in just to be sure. There's no Pump 6. There are only 4 pumps. I even went inside and asked the clerk if they ever had 6. He said, "Not since the old fire. We lost 2 pumps back in 2007. Never rebuilt them." I don't know who she was, or what I saw, or what she wanted, but I haven't driven that route since, and some nights when I stop to fuel up elsewhere, I still double-check to see if there's a Pump 6. It was supposed to be a quick overnight stay. I was driving back from my cousin's wedding in North Carolina and got too tired to push through the last 3 hours home. So I pulled off at one of those no-name exits, just a gas station, a diner, and a small, rundown roadside motel, the Parkview Inn. You've seen a dozen places like it, faded pink paint, a broken soda machine out front, and a plastic sign that read "vacancy" flickering like it was struggling to stay alive. The front desk was behind glass. The woman working there barely looked up from her crossword. I asked for a quiet room and paid in cash. She gave me a key for room 209. The second floor was outside access, like a two-story strip mall. The stairs creaked under my weight as I walked. Up, everything smelled like mildew and cigarettes. When I opened the door, the room was surprisingly clean. Not nice, but not disgusting. One bed, one chair, a lamp that buzzed, a TV bolted to the dresser. The window faced the back parking lot, which was empty except for a single van parked near the dumpster. I took a quick shower and climbed into bed. I was asleep within minutes. I woke up suddenly around 2 a.m., heart racing. At first, I didn't know why. Then I heard it. A soft knocking. It wasn't on my door. It was coming from the room next to mine room. 210. Knock. Knock dash knock. Then silence. I sat up, listening. Knock. A pause. Then 3 quick knocks. It didn't stop. It just kept happening. Slow, then fast. Sometimes right after each other. Sometimes with long pauses in between. But always those knocks. At first, I figured someone was locked out, maybe trying to wake someone up, but the rhythm started to feel wrong, off, like they weren't really trying to get in, like they were doing it for no reason other than to knock. I checked the peephole in my door. No one in the hallway. I opened the door a crack and looked down the row of rooms. Still no one. But the knocking continued, soft and steady, through the wall to my right. I called the front desk. No answer. After a few more minutes, it stopped. Laid back down, uneasy, staring at the ceiling. Eventually, I drifted off again. Around 3:40 a.m., I heard a loud crash. I sat up, heart pounding. It came from room 210. Then silence. No footsteps, no talking. Just dead silence. I wanted to pretend I hadn't heard anything, but something was eating at me. I felt watched. I pulled the chair over and wedged it under the doorknob just in case. I kept the lamp on. The next morning, sunlight woke me. I had slept maybe 2 hours tops. I packed up fast and went down to the desk. The woman from the night before was gone. A different man was working, older, gray-haired, polite. I asked him casually if anyone had complained about noise from room 210. He gave me a strange look. There. Is number 210, he said. I blinked. No, I was in 209. The knocking came from the room next to mine. He shook his head. 209's the last room on that side. The room beside it is just a storage space. It hasn't been used in years. I didn't say anything, just stared at him. He must have seen something in my face, because he leaned in and lowered his voice. You're not the first one to ask about that room, he said. Every so often, someone hears knocking, usually around 2 or 3 in the morning. From an empty room? I asked. He nodded. We've checked it. Nothing there. But people keep asking. I thanked him and left. As I walked back to my car, I passed the back of the motel, near the dumpster. The van I'd seen the night before was still there, but this time I noticed something strange. It was covered in a layer of dust, like it hadn't been moved in weeks. The tires were flat, and the side door had a huge dent in it, like someone had tried to kick their way out. There was no license plate. I drove home fast, barely stopping. I told myself it was just a weird coincidence. Maybe an old van someone abandoned. Maybe the walls were thin and the sound came from somewhere else. But something about that night doesn't sit right with me. Sometimes, when I wake up in the middle of the night, I think I hear it again. That soft, steady knocking through the wall. Always 3 times. I don't like driving at night. I avoid it when I can. But sometimes work runs late and the roads are empty and there's no choice. This happened last fall, around October. I was driving back from visiting my brother, heading through a long stretch of interstate that cuts through forest and farmland. You know the kind, nothing but trees and darkness on both sides. With the occasional gas station glowing in the distance like a lighthouse. It was around 1 a.m. when I stopped to use the restroom. I hadn't seen another car in miles. The gas station was one of those older ones, rusty pumps, flickering sign, the whole place washed in that cold fluorescent light. It looked half abandoned, but the store was open, and I really had to pee. I went straight to the restroom in the back. It was one of those single-person restrooms with stalls inside, men's on the left, women's on the right, the kind you find at truck stops. The men's room had 2 urinals, 2 stalls, and a sink with a cracked mirror. One of the stall doors was closed. I thought nothing of it. I took the urinal farthest from the stall and tried to do my business, but I kept getting distracted. There was no sound from inside the stall. No feet visible beneath the door. No rustling. Just that door, closed, silent. But I knew someone was in there. The lock bolt was pushed into place. I even heard it click when I first walked in. I finished up quickly and moved to the sink. I kept glancing at the mirror, trying not to look obvious. Still no sound from the stall. Just the fluorescent light buzzing overhead and the occasional creak of the building shifting. As I washed my hands, I heard something. Breathing. Slow, quiet breathing. Coming from behind the stall door, not loud. Just enough. Like someone was trying not to be heard. Controlled, measured, but I could hear it through the quiet. Then it stopped. I froze. I stared at the door and the mirror. It was like the air changed. He knew I had heard him. I dried my hands with a paper towel, trying to act calm. But my heart was hammering. I walked toward the door to leave. Then, "Hey," a man's voice. From inside the stall, low, flat, like gravel sliding across pavement. I stopped, hand on the door handle. "Do you have a phone?" he asked. His voice was calm, but something was off. Too slow, too careful. "Yeah," I said. I lied. I wasn't about to pull my phone out in that moment. He was silent for a beat. Then, "Can you call someone for me?" I didn't respond. My hand was still on the door, my thumb shaking on the metal push bar. "I need help," he said. But he didn't sound like he needed help. He sounded like he was smiling. Then he said something that made my stomach turn cold. "I like your jacket." I wasn't wearing anything distinctive, just a plain gray HOODIE. There were no gaps in that stall door. No way to see me. Not unless he'd been watching the whole time. Through the crack, through the mirror, through somewhere. I left. Fast. I walked straight out to the lot where my car sat under the only working lamp. As I unlocked the door, I looked back at the gas station. No one had come out. No one was in sight. I got in and locked the doors. Drove 10 miles before pulling over to a better lit truck stop. Went inside, bought a coffee, sat at a booth, and finally pulled out my phone. I Googled the gas station. Tried to find reviews or information. Nothing came up. Not a listing. Not a photo. Nothing. It was like it didn't exist. I even tried to retrace the route a week later during daylight, just to prove to myself I wasn't going crazy. There was no gas station at that. Exit. Just a gravel turnout and a closed-off construction zone. A sign said a new station was coming soon, but the foundation was fresh, like nothing had ever stood there before. I still don't understand it. I know what I saw. I know I was in that bathroom. I remember the feel of the door handle, the soap that barely lathered, the yellow glow of the lights, and I remember the man's voice, calm, flat. "I like your jacket." Sometimes I think I should have stayed, asked questions, opened the stall. Maybe it was just some guy messing with me, but Something tells me if I'd stayed 1 second longer, if I'd said anything else, I wouldn't have left that bathroom.